Welcome to another session of Master Domaining. I'm Gene Pimentel, and today we're going to go over valuation websites and how to best determine the value of your domain. In our last session, I gave you some tips and thought processes behind understanding the value of your domain names. In this session, I'll demonstrate for you 4 of the more useful domain valuation websites and give you some understanding on how to interpret the results. First, to reiterate what I shared earlier, keep these things in mind. Number 1, every domain name is a completely different and unique product. It doesn't matter if they're only different by a character or by the TLD or the extension. That one little difference makes it completely unique, and therefore the value can be completely different. It's like comparing the DNA of humans and chimpanzees. Although we share an estimated 98% of the same DNA, that little 2% difference makes us completely different species. Number 2, the value of a domain can be almost zilch to 99% of the population, while being worth thousands of dollars to a few specific individuals or companies. Number 3, there is no such thing as an accurate domain appraisal. No such thing. Please remember that. The price a domain sells for is not determined by the domain itself. It's determined by how hungry the potential buyer is. It's determined by how valuable it is to a specific buyer based on how it can be a benefit to his or her business. You can ask 10 of the most experienced domainers what they think your domain is worth, and you'll get 10 different answers. Any attempt at appraising the value of a domain name is really futile. Have I made that clear enough? So why even bother with using one of the valuation websites I'm about to show you? Well, the answer is because the valuation can give you some insight. The way it works is the algorithm the service uses will compare the measurable factors in your domain name and compare it to a database of similar domains that have already sold for specific amounts. Now, it would be a huge mistake to assume the value they assign to your domain is what you can actually sell it for. In my own experience, most domains I sell for thousands of dollars were valuated at $0 to $10. Keep that in mind. Also, some domains that I had to drop or sell for $50 or so were valued at over $500. Remember, when 1 or 2 particular prospects are highly interested in a domain name, it doesn't matter what any valuation service says. They will pay what they think it's worth to them. It's also important to understand that the algorithms these sites use cannot possibly take into consideration the human factors and the brand new current trends and new ideas. For example, a new business starts up and is named HGW Enterprises. Do you think a valuation service would give this a value of over $10? Very unlikely, but to that business or that business person, it's worth a lot. When a brand new technology or product is released, the name of that technology or product is yet unknown to the valuation services. Therefore, the true value can't be determined at all. The way to use the valuation site is similar to how a real estate agent uses a comp. They look around the neighborhood to see what comparable homes have sold for recently. Then they set a price on their listing to be somewhat in the same price range. The domain valuation service can spit out a number based on other comparable domain sales in the database. They can give you some idea of what the marketplace has done in the past, but they can never give you the value of what it's worth to a specific person or business. If the value they give is extremely low, this is your tip to do further research. So let's have a look at the 4 valuation sites. There are others, of course, but these are some of the most useful and popular. One of my favorite sites, by far, is Estabot.com. They have a whole lineup of tools that you can use under this Tools tab, but for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to show you their appraisal tool. So just go to Estabot.com, and under the appraisal tool, just type in the domain name that you want to research. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to type in my domain name, which is masterdomaining.com, and click the Appraise button, and now it gives you a report of many factors involving that domain name. So it breaks down the keywords, master domaining, what language it is, and here's the estimated price, $0. Now, why would it give a great name like masterdomaining.com a value of $0? Simply because there's nothing in their database that really compares to it, so they couldn't come up with a number, or they don't understand that a brand new business has just started on that domain name, so therefore they can't value that. Now, whenever you research a domain name and it shows 0 or a low number, that just gives you a tip-off to make sure there's a valid market for the domain that you're trying to offer. Then if you look below, you'll see other things like Here are some related sites and what they sold for. Webmaster Apps sold for $770, but they're really not close to my domain name. It just gives you a little bit of comparison. So this just gives you a little bit of information and more of an idea of which way to head with your domain name. Let's go back and type in a more known domain name like facebook.com. And let's appraise that. And look what we have here, Estabat value, NA, because it's a high-risk trademark domain. So they let you know whenever they think it's a trademarked term in your domain name. So that's very helpful as well. Let's try something in between, something not trademarked, but something that should be of value. Let's try something like bostoninsurance.com. I just pulled that one off the top of my head. I don't know who owns it or what the value is, but this should show a value because insurance is a strong keyword and the city of Boston is a strong keyword. This particular domain name, by my experience, I know would sell for many thousands of dollars. Let's see what they appraise it for. They appraise it for $3,400. Now, depending on your skill in finding just the right buyer, that could be much higher. A domain like this could sell for $10,000, or it may sell for $1,000. It all depends on how you're able to research and find certain buyers. Of course, that we'll get into further in the sessions. So there you have it for Estabat.com. Now let's look at a different site called Valuate.com. Valuate.com. And if you simply type the domain name into Valuate.com, we'll try the same one, BostonInsurance.com. Click I'm Not a Robot, and click Valuate. And in this case, they value it at the same price, $3,400. Now, it's unusual for two different services to come up with the same number. But in this case, they're pulling information from Estabat.com, which is the site we tried first. So let's go look at a different site called Instica.com. INSTICA. Simply type in your domain again, click Go, and what they do is give you information, but if you want to know what it's worth, to what they consider it's worth, you have to enter your email. So I'll enter my email, and they are valuing BostonInsurance.com at $29. So you see how different every appraisal service will be, from $3,400 to $29. One more site I can show you is DomainIndex.com. So let's see what they have to say about this. We'll click the Appraise button, and their appraised value was $1,290. So you see how we're all over the map with pricing? We had one for $29, one for $1,290, and one for $3,400, or two for $3,400, but that's using the same engine. So you have to take this with a grain of salt, and like I said earlier, if it's a very low number, that just gives you more of a tip-off to go and do further research. If all of these sites say 0 or low, then you know you might be in trouble with that domain name, unless you have a specific buyer who it may be worth a lot more to. So take all this with a grain of salt, and just keep in mind that there is no such thing as an accurate domain appraisal service.